Hello, this is Rory Donovan Scott. You are watching Trash Talk. Now, over the course of the past week, I've had quite a few people asking me what I thought about the new Stephen King's It trailer. And rather than respond to each of them individually, I figured I would just make my next video about it. So today's episode is Stephen King's It trailer opinions. Now, one thing I would like to make very clear is that this is not a remake. The adaptation of Stephen King's It that came out in 1990 was a television series. Granted, it was a short television series, aka a mini-series, but it was nonetheless a television series. It used a 7-act per episode format versus your standard cinematic 3-act format for the screenplay. So we know just based on that this is going to be very different than what we saw with Tim Curry. Now, I will say, this is going to contain spoilers of both the It miniseries to come out in 1990 and the source material, Stephen King's It, the book. But let's get into the trailer, shall we? The trailer opens setting up the iconic scene from the 1990 miniseries in which little Georgie is taking a paper boat given to him by his older brother Bill and accidentally loses it in a drain cellar. Now, this could just be the way that they edited the trailer, but it seems from the little snippet of Pennywise that we see in that scene that he's going to sort of be revealed as a jump scare, which off the bat is concerning to me, but I'll get into that later. Another thing to take away from this snippet is that we don't hear Billy stutter. That's an important part of his character arc, both in the original miniseries and in the book. It's what makes him a loser, it's what puts him in the loser's club. Because when you take away the element of his stutter, he's supposed to be a young, attractive, intelligent, athletic individual. He's really sort of set apart from the rest because of that. It sort of makes him a natural-born leader. If it weren't for his unfortunate stutter, he would be able to fit in normal social circles without any issue. So I'm really hoping they don't take that aspect away from his character. If they got a child actor that's unable to pretend he has a stutter, then they should have cast someone else. After that, we get a nice aerial shot of the town of Derry. We get a nice missing child poster that shows a character from the book that was not in the miniseries. So that leads me to think that it's possible that this film really is going to be closer to the source material. Another thing that I'm really hoping is just the result of how they edited the trailer is that the overall tone carried by the kids when they're just being kids doesn't seem nearly as fantastical and energetic as they're supposed to feel. Like, we have to remember that Stephen King's It, yes, it is a horror, but it's also a child's fantasy. The aspects of the story that take place from the perspective of the children is supposed to be endearing. It's supposed to be sort of a romanticized, nostalgic look at childhood and the bonds we form with our closest friends. So if all of this film is just bleak terror and jump scares, it's going to lose what makes this story so compelling. It's not really said in the trailer specifically, but it has been stated that this film is going to take place in the 80s and present time, as opposed to how it was written in the 50s and then later on in the 80s. I'm sort of a purist. I don't think that that's a good decision. Ultimately, they could have had that retro nostalgic 80s feel for the adult sequences and still been able to keep the children's segment in the 50s. I think that making it modern is ultimately going to detract from the feel of the film. We do get a fun little Easter egg of the haunted house, which in the book is another one of its layers, Pennywise's layers, Bob Gray's layers. In the miniseries, he has the sewers, which I'm hoping you all know, but in the book that wasn't the only place that he would lurk. This is another little bit of evidence that they might be sticking closer to the source material, which again, I'm happy about. They are, however, seeming to take some creative liberties in restructuring iconic scenes from both the miniseries and the book, in which the children have their first encounter with the clown as a group. Of course, in the miniseries, they see him through a photo album that seems to move on its own, opening to a page where they see the clown, and then the clown sort of speaks to them and threatens them, because ultimately the clown is afraid of a confrontation with them. In this version, it seems to be photo slides. I'm assuming that it's going to set up the same way where the clown actually interacts with them in that scene. That's what I'm getting from that. We see another snippet of the iconic bloody bathroom scene in which Beverly Marsh has her first encounter with the clown. In the book and in the mini-series, a balloon swells up in her sink after she hears the voices of dead children at the bottom of the drain. When that balloon pops, it splashes blood all over the bathroom. Later on, she discovers that her father can't see the blood, which gives her the horrific realization that the adults can't help them with this. In this version, there doesn't seem to be blood at all. It's just black goo or maybe sewage water or whatever. And the only reason I can think that they would do that is to shy away from a harsher rating. Which, Jesus Christ, grow a pair of balls. We see a scene with the balloon floating behind Ben in the library. This, of course, did not happen in the miniseries, but it did happen in the book, where Ben's first encounter with Pennywise occurred while he was at a library and then on his way home. Again, this is further evidence that they are trying to stick closer to the source material. Finally, the trailer ends with a confrontation between Billy and what looks like the ghost of his younger brother Georgie, although it seems to be taking place in his flooded basement, which didn't happen in the book or in the miniseries. Then we see Pennywise coming up from the water in the flooded basement, and then we get one big jump scare. Now I'm going to get into why that bothers me. Why Stephen King's It can't be a horror film based on jump scares. What made the mini-series so terrifying was Tim Curry's performance, and the way that they were able to do that is not by relying on jump scares. They just relied on this sort of doom and gloom, overall arcing dread that the children are feeling at all times. Every moment these kids are living is like an exposed nerve, knowing that they are in danger at all times. This jump scare thing is just a cheap way to get the audiences to react. It doesn't fit. It's a completely different tone. This isn't supposed to be some Friday the 13th hack and slash slasher film. This is supposed to be Pennywise the Clown. Pennywise is scary on his own merit. You don't need to have the jump scares. It's unnecessary. It will detract from the film. And of course, I can go into sort of the drama leading in the pre-production of this film to talk about how Cary Fukunaga ultimately left the project when he wanted to have a super in-depth script that really got us to understand where the kids were coming from and really established how scary the clown is, but ultimately the studio wanted to veer away from that to make way for more jump scares and more generic characters. If you think that I'm exaggerating on this, you can look up Cary's actual quote on why he left and see that I am not exaggerating. This is what the studio wants. This is ultimately my biggest source of fear as far as this film is concerned. If it does really just try to rely on scaring people in the theater and making a few extra bucks, then it's going to be horrible. I do not know the majority of the cast in this film, but we do know that with the miniseries, what led the first half was how genuine and believable those kids were. You really felt for them. You really felt that those kids had a bond with each other. And you really felt that what they were going through was real. The kids and the clown, they were both fantastic actors. Now, I like Bill Skarsgård. I enjoy him in the things that I see him in. I know that he has big shoes to fill. And in the same way that Jackie Earle Haley was unable to live up to Robert Englund, I don't blame him for that. And I won't blame Bill Skarsgård if this film doesn't hold up to the original. Ultimately, it's in the hands of the producers. Here's what I'm hoping from this movie. It does seem like they are at least throwing Easter egg homage to the actual source material. And if they make this as close to the original as possible, the closer they get, the happier I'll be. Choosing to ignore the miniseries and just going to the source material can ultimately make this film very, very different from the Tim Curry version. And I think that could be this film's strongest merit. I would love for them to go in-depth enough into this film to actually connect it to the Dark Tower film that's coming out, but I don't think that that's going to happen for a majority of reasons. Nonetheless, it would be really fun to see the whole Turtle versus Pennywise subplot come to light. Also, you know, there's that whole child orgy scene at the end of the book, which I mean, it is in the original, but does anybody really want to see that? I don't know. It's not my thing personally. What were you thinking, Stephen King? Come on, child orgy? Really? I'm not exaggerating. There is a child orgy. But I digress. Ultimately, this trailer did not impress me. It had a couple of fun Easter eggs in it, and it made me hopeful, but I don't think that this is going to be a good movie. I reserve the right to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I really, really, really want it to be good, but we'll see. Anyway, that's my opinions on the trailer for the new Stephen King's It movie coming out September. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you like what I said, please give me a thumbs up. If you disagree with me, write in the comments your opinions. Regardless, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.